right, my dear friends, we finally made it to the agent world of Semantic Kernel. So after all these videos, we finally get to choose to use agents instead of just the regular chat completion service inside of Semantic Kernel. As a matter of fact, if you're using only one agent, it doesn't really matter whether you're using an agent or a chat completion service, it acts the same way. It becomes more interesting when you have a lot of different agents involved. That is the beauty of it. But to do this video in here, let's go ahead and just create one agent and see how similar the code is, whether you're going to use a chat completion or a chat completion agent. All right, let's go for it. All right, let's get back into Visual Studio Code. We'll create a brand new project, Control-Shift-P, new project, and we go ahead and create a console app. And this one will be number 11, and we'll say one agent. All right, just to remember that this is only for one agent. And we'll create the folder and the solution, and we are good to go. First thing, like usual, we would like to bring in all the NuGet packages. So I'm going to save you some time and bring those in. Let me indent this correctly. All right. So I'm going to bring in all the extensions for HTTP, the configuration, the JSON. Important thing, of course, Semantic Kernel itself, the agents.core and agents.openai. So this is new. Before we used to use the connectors for OpenAI. But now we're using the agents, and we're bringing in the entire NuGet packages for the core implementation of agents in Semantic Kernel as well. So I'm bringing those in. Once I do Control S, all of them will be important and available in my project right away. All right, and I also need the app settings for OpenAI. Notice I'm using OpenAI, not Azure OpenAI. You can use either one, it doesn't really matter, it's the same code. But I'm gonna come in here and we will say, oops, no, that's not what I want. I want to go to this project, one agent, and we will create app settings.json. And I'm going to copy and paste from a previous project for my OpenAI. That is my OpenAI API key, and that is the model I want to use, GPT 4.1. There is no endpoint for OpenAI. That is already built in, and it knows where to go. Now let me show you how similar the code is. I'm going to delete all that stuff. And I'm going to bring in the code. Let me show you what's happening in here. Same configuration builder. I'm going to go get the model ID and the API key from my app settings, all good. And now I'm going to create a new service collection. And the reason for that is I would like to bring in HTTP client. And by the way, the only reason I'm bringing HTTP client is because in that code, I would like to bring in two plugins. Remember the plugins that I wrote earlier for the geocode and for the get weather? Well, they both use REST API call, so I need to bring in HTTP client, otherwise I will not be able to call it using the iHTTP interface. So that's the only reason why I'm bringing in add HTTP client. All right, I'm going to use the kernel builder. I'm going to add the OpenAI chat completions like we did before. I'm going to add the add HTTP client and the singleton for the config like we did before. So far, this looks identical to what we had before. The only difference that will start showing up, instead of actually doing the required service to get the chat completion service, I'm going to use a new class here called ChatCompletionAgent. So if I actually take a look at all the properties available on that an object, there is instructions, name, kernel, arguments, and then in the arguments you can actually pass whether you would like the LLM to call automatically or not. So this is pretty cool. This is our only agent that we will have inside of this application. So I'm going to call this one answer weather related questions, and the name of it, you can give it whatever name you want. I called it, for instance, the weather bot. I'm going to use the kernel that got created above, and the arguments in here will tell the system using the OpenAI prompt execution settings that the LLM has the freedom to call whatever it wants at any time as well. And at this point, I need to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go to my 09 plugins. Remember that folder called plugins that had 4 of them? I only need 2 of them, but I'm going to steal them. So I'm going to say copy this guy, and we'll go to the one agent and we'll say paste. And inside of there, I'm going to delete the Lino info. I don't need it. Bye-bye to you. And also the get date and time, which was silly. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm only going to keep 2 of them. The get geo coordinates that I've done before and the get weather. These are the 2 plugins I would like to use. So after you actually create an instance of that agent using the chat completion agent, remember you can use the chat completion agent in Semantic Kernel, you can use the OpenAI assistant agents, and you can use the Azure AI Foundry agents. We're going to do all of these things, but this is the first one we're going to try, and this one is to use the chat completion agent to make it work. All right, once you create an instance of that, this is the code to be able to bring in your plugin. We'll say agent.kernel.plugins.add, and you will pass in the kernel plugin factory, and it will be create from type, passing in the geo coordinates and the get weather as well, passing the service provider, which is the kernel.services that we created all the way at the top in here for the service collection as well. And if you have 10 different plugins, great. These are all going to be one after the other being able to be added to the plugins of the kernel of that specific agent that we created. And now we're going to create an empty chat for the history. That's an empty array, it has nothing in it. And then I'm going to invoke, you can invoke this as many times as you want to. So I'm not going to use a prompt, I'm just going to go ahead and run it. So I'm going to say invoke agent async. So this is different than before because we're using an agent. If I put my cursor over it, remember the first parameter has to be the agent instance itself, and then the history, and then what the prompt itself at. So I read the chat is empty, but I need to pass it. The agent I just created above. And then I'm going to say, what is the weather like in Orlando, Florida? And the second one, what is the weather like in San Diego, California? And you can keep asking more and more questions. The rest of the code is very similar to what you've seen before. The invoke agent async in here will end up doing an agent.invokeAsync. So that is the function that really ends up being called from the framework for semantic kernel, saying agent.invokeAsync, passing the prompt, and the prompt will be one by one. That's why it's a for each, because if I have 10 different ones, I'm going to call one after the other, and that will write out on the console the response message for each one. Simple enough. That's how agents out of the box work in semantic kernel. Very simple. You just have to create your kernel, create an instance of your agent, give it instructions, name, kernel arguments, and we are ready to go. So let's go ahead and save all of that stuff, and then come in here. We'll go backward once. We'll say cd11, there it is, and now we'll say .NET run. All right, and it will, I don't even need to answer anything. It will just take these two questions, it will answer them one after the other. Oh, give us an error. Let's see what the error is. Failed to load configuration from file, semantic kernel open. Oh, app settings.json. Did I misspell it? I always forget. See that button there? It shows me that this file has not been saved. So you have to remember to do that. Control S. If the file is not saved, the program cannot open it or do anything with it. All right, sounds good. Let's go ahead and do it again. CLS to clear, and we'll do the .NET one more time. All right, what is the weather like in Orlando, Florida? Notice the geo tool has to be called and the weather tool has to be called, both of them, because the weather doesn't know anything about a city. It knows about latitude and longitude, so something else has to be called first. And now it's going to actually run the one for San Diego, and there is the weather in San Diego in here as well. The reason I chose San Diego is because a week from now, I'm doing the same exact session about semantic kernel fundamentals at the VS Live conference. So you are my guinea pigs today. All right, sounds good. All right, so that works. It looks like the agent works great. There is not much difference between what we did before using a chat completion service or a chat completion agent in this one. So it will not really manifest a big deal, but it will start showing up when we start having multiple agents that can communicate between each other. That will be the interesting part. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.